Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we are throwing out the dense psychological theory. We're going straight to the whiteboard to look at the raw reality of a counseling session. We are zeroing in on one absolutely critical skill, how to actively draw out change talk from a client who just isn't quite ready to express it yet. If you've ever felt totally stuck with a defensive or hesitant client, you are in the right place. Let's dive in and see how a conversation can completely shift based on just a few simple word choices. Scene 1. The solution trap. Okay, let's drop right into a super familiar scenario. We're going to run a simulation that traps so many novice counselors. It's that overwhelming, almost gut-level urge to instantly fix a client's problem the absolute second they bring it up. Here's our starting point. The client offers this really faint opening. They say, I guess I should probably cut back on drinking. I don't know. Notice that hesitation? The client is expressing some deep ambivalence. They're cracking the door open, sure, but just barely. They haven't committed to a single thing. Now check out how the counselor responds in this, well, let's call it the wrong version of the scenario. The counselor says, that's great. So what's your plan? They immediately jump right into problem-solving mode. They hear a tiny hint of a problem and aggressively push for a solution. They want to plan, track, and fix, all before they've taken even a second to explore where the client's head is actually at. And predictably, what happens next? The client instantly backpedals, saying, I don't really have a plan. By asking for a plan prematurely, the counselor essentially slammed the door shut. If the counselor keeps pushing, saying something like, well, what about cutting back on weekends first? The client just deflects with, maybe. I haven't really thought about it. And if the counselor tries one more time with, you could try tracking how much you drink each day, the client shuts down entirely. I don't know. That feels like a lot. They're retreating defensively from that premature pressure to change. The contrast here is incredibly interesting. Notice the exact pivot point where this conversation fails versus how it actually could succeed. On one side, we have this solution trap, jumping straight to solutions and demanding a plan. On the other side, we have a totally different approach. Something's been making you think about this. It is literally the difference between slamming the door shut and holding it wide open. Scene 1. Opening the door. So let's rewind our simulation. We'll replay that exact same opening line from the client, but this time let's look at the right way to handle it. The client says, I guess I should probably cut back on drinking, I don't know. And the counselor replies, something's been making you think about this. See the difference? Instead of demanding a plan, the counselor offers this gentle, open observation. It's an invitation. It tells the client, hey, I hear you're thinking about this, and I want to know why. It gives them the space to elaborate on their own terms. Given that comfortable space, the client actually opens up. They respond, yeah, my sleep is bad. I'm tired all the time. This is a huge breakthrough. The client is beginning to surface their own internal reasons for wanting to change. They aren't arguing against a counselor's strict plan, they are just stating the real negative effects of their current behavior. And this illustrates the next step perfectly. The counselor follows up with, so your body is starting to tell you something. They are following the client's words deeper. They're using reflective listening to capture the exact meaning of what was just said, totally avoiding any new advice, judgment, or clinical fixes. Yeah, and my wife mentioned it last week. That kind of hit me. The counselor asks, what was it about what she said that stayed with you? And the client admits, she said she was worried. And I realized I was too, actually. The result here is absolutely undeniable. By simply holding that door open, the client has started actively arguing for change themselves. The counselor didn't have to convince them of anything. They just created the space. And that is exactly what we mean by drawing out change talk. 3 questions for change talk. Now that we've seen it work so beautifully in that first scene, let's break down the framework behind it. How can you reliably make this happen? Well, we can distill it down into 3 highly effective question types designed specifically to evoke change talk. It's all about knowing what to ask. First up, what would be different if things changed? This draws out their desire and reason. Second, what makes this important to you? This zeroes in on their need. And third, what tells you that you could do this if you decided to? This draws out their ability. Scene 2. Follow client language. Let's look at a second simulation, a client trying to quit smoking. In the wrong approach, the client says, I know I should quit smoking. I've known for years. The counselor asks, so what's been stopping you? The client says, stress, I guess. Then the counselor pitches solutions. Have you tried nicotine patches? The client says, they didn't work. The counselor pushes. What about prescription medication? It's one of the most effective options. And the client shuts down. I don't want more medication. Right? Complete dead end. But in the right version, the client says, I know I should quit smoking. I've known for years. The counselor uses our first question type. You've been carrying this for a while. What would be different for you if you weren't smoking? And the client replies with this incredible gem. I'd have more energy, and I wouldn't feel guilty every time my kid sees me go outside. Now, the novice instinct here is to keep pushing the clinical fix, right? Have you tried patches? Let's talk about meds. But the real power is hiding in this specific phrase, your kid. That is the client's own language, and it holds a massive amount of their intrinsic motivation. So instead of pushing a clinical fix, the counselor totally abandons the medication talk and reflects that emotional anchor right back to them. They say, that image of your kid, that means something to you. The counselor is taking an active, genuine interest in the client's internal world. The client responds, yeah, that one actually gets to me. The counselor follows up, what would it mean to them if things were different? And the client delivers this powerful line. Everything, probably. That's the whole reason I'm here. By following the client's exact language, the counselor completely bypasses resistance and helps solidify a profound internal commitment to change. Scene 3, uncovering the importance. Let's jump into our final simulation. Imagine a client who needs to change a poor diet. In the wrong version, the client says, my doctor told me I need to change my diet. I guess I've been eating pretty badly. The counselor jumps in. Even small changes make a big difference, like swapping one meal a day. The client deflects. I know, I just don't have time. The counselor pushes. There are actually a lot of quick, healthy options now. The client just says, I'll try. Total shutdown, again. Instead of that, we can use a tactical conversational tool to uncover underlying needs, the importance scale. It's just asking for a number from 1 to 10. It is a brilliant way to visually and mentally reset the conversation, forcing the client to step back and evaluate their own drive independently. Let's see the right version play out. The client admits they've been eating badly because of their doctor. The counselor asks, your doctor's words landed on you somehow. What went through your mind when you heard that? The client reveals, honestly, fear. I have 2 young kids. I don't want to be sick when they're growing up. The counselor reflects. Being there for them, that's what's really driving this. The client agrees. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Once you find that powerful emotional anchor, you lean in and ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this to you right now? It's a direct, measurable, open question. And the client responds with a surprisingly high number, 8, maybe 9. Now, this right here is a critical juncture. The counselor has just been handed the perfect opening, but how they respond next dictates whether they draw out more change talk or completely shut the client down. Look closely at what the counselor asks next. What makes it that high for you? This is the absolute genius of the importance scale. The rookie mistake is to ask, well, why isn't it a 10? Which instantly forces the client to defend why they can't change. But by asking what makes it an 8 instead of a lower number, you force the client to vocalize their absolute strongest reasons for acting right now. The client replies, my kids. Everything comes back to that. We've successfully uncovered the deep importance driving their change. One tool to try tomorrow. We've covered a lot of ground analyzing these 3 simulated conversations. So let's distill all of this down to a single, highly actionable takeaway you can use in your practice. Here is your challenge. In your very next session tomorrow, challenge yourself to pause. Resist the solution trap. Just ask one open question before offering any advice or solutions. Ask them what would be different, or why it's important, or simply reflect their own language back to them. What will your client actually reveal when you stop trying to fix them and start holding the door open instead? Think about that before your next session. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.